Hi, I'm Yehan Jehan, and today I'm going to guide you through my song Invisible Friends and the session in Logic and how it was produced and mixed. Invisible Friends started off as a demo, like every song, on Sunday the 7th of May 2017, which is almost 3 years ago, which is pretty crazy. So let's open it up and see what's happening. So it starts off with there's a drum loop, and the cycle of guitar chords. And then when we get to the chorus, that's this. So that's a bunch of mumbling vocals doing the basic melody that came to mind, which is something I do very early on. So every song, try to get the vocals in like as soon as possible. I find like the instinctive nature of like getting the first thing that comes to your head is quite potent and fitting to the song. At least it can be most of the time in my experience, but if you dwell on it too long, you can you can open up so many doors of possibility, and then you can kind of get lost in like trying to find a melody for something. So I just try and go for the first thing and put some, gibberish on it. So in this case, it's like, open your eyes, don't love with you. Open your eyes, set the tone, love with you. Make of that what you will. Anyway. So by the time it came to record it and produce it properly, I moved into another session, which would be this one. And that's started off on the 30th of November of 2017, which is when I started, when I got some new equipment and I started working on an album, which ended up being the two Earth Arrangements EPs. So let's open this. So because this is not the computer I work on usually, there's a few plugins missing. Well, on this one quite a lot, but it doesn't matter. We'll get through it. So this is the whole layout for the song. And I'll just press play. We'll just do the instrumental first, and then I'll move on to the vocals afterwards. So we have like this supporting kick and rim shot on top of the loop that I brought in, and we have the guitar cycle and this Nord delay, which is just giving this like ambient texture in the background. And then we'll go bring in some congas and bass and another kind of faint pad of a old Fairlight sample, which is just in the background. Moving on to the chorus, let's see. Got a chorus conga, there's the conga that was here, and together they are like this. Add some claps, snaps. They're pretty faint actually, but whatever. The guitars, the basic strum, a more repetitive strum with the chorus, a nice CE1 model, which I used to have the original, but don't anymore. There's a trio of guitars, being fed with a bit of delay. Valhalla's not activated, fuck it. We have this Alchemy arpeggiator. I think it's from the Logic Alchemy VST. It's pretty weird on its own, and you almost don't hear it at all. It almost doesn't even need to be there, but it's there. Let's see. Yeah, it's giving this kind of rhythmic thing. I like it. So the transition back into the verse, it was kind of empty at first. I needed to fill it up somehow. So I found this patch on this Arturia Fairlight plugin, which is pretty cool, and it has a couple of interesting patches. So one of them was this. I think it's a combination of like two. It's got this timpani sub bass and this digital artifact thing. So that's pretty much it. And then now we introduced like two other drum kits on top of the initial loop that I had. So one of them is a kit that I made, which is a kick, snare, and a hi-hat, which sounds like this. And it's just a pretty chunky kit that I used on a lot of the EP back then. You can hear actually, I like this kick particularly because it's really, I muted the wrong one. It's a very low, hissy kick, and you can hear the person who recorded it say okay at the end of every sample. So there's just okay, 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 okay. But anyway, it all adds to the charm. But anyway, it doesn't matter, like, you don't hear it. So that's that kit. Let's unmute those again. And there's another drum kit, which is a kit that I bought from a company called Drum Drops, who do really cool drum tracks and contact drum kits. And they modeled in particular this Gretsch kit, which is an homage to like Al Green, like soul, Philly soul records. Has a very tight, dampened sound, but it's mic'd kind of more in a unconventional way, so it's not close mic'd, but in between the kick and the snare, in between the kick and the tom, underneath the ride, and one from the back. So all in all, it's just quite roomy and open, and sounds really like quite vintage. And it comes with its own set of effects, spring reverbs, and like, you know, they've actually got everything here, but the springs are really cool, like this Fairchild thing. So on the kick and the snare particularly, it's fun. I think it's also, yeah, it's kind of got its own bus compressions, tape saturation. So I just kept that on there. I usually put that through a DBX 160, which is phenomenal for drums. Like, and I probably, in the mix session, which we'll go to later, it probably has it on there. That combination of like these three drums, then just is the groove, plus the congas and bass, guitar. There we go. Afterwards, this synth comes in, which is again from this Alchemy synth in Logic. It's one of the only patches that I actually like, and it's got this very wobbly vinyl, hissy warp thing going on, which you can hear. And again, I put the DBX here to just lift up that texture in this part. If you add more high end, you can really like start to hear it. It's nice. Little ride appeared. Originally, it's not in the final version, but there was this bass filter quack part, which I took out in mastering on the advice of my uncle who actually mastered the EP. It was just kind of getting in the way of the final balance. So in some ways, like, if it doesn't serve the song anymore, it's just, even though you love it, you need to get rid of it. So, you know, you got to make way for those kind of things. So in its own right, like with just the drums, it would work. But in context of the whole song and the mix, it started to get annoying, so it didn't cut it. So here there's a breakdown bit for the instrumental part, which is like an homage to, you know, a classic drum break, which you would sample, and I just kind of kept that in as a reference to that because it sounded like a really cool sample, and hopefully for someone in the future to sample if they wanted to. So I love that. But in its own, you know, it's how it's built. That's it. So the piano comes in, which is treated with an Abbey Road vinyl plugin, and it's pretty cool because it sounds like the real thing, and you can really push it with the wow and flutter and like these kind of characteristics of vinyl, and especially on the piano it just gives it this you know, romantic feeling, like it's also been sampled from something else. So I like it when the piano is kind of slowly pitching, and you can get really extreme with it. So that immediately sounds like, you know, a sample or something, which I do quite often to make something sound as if it was cut from somewhere. In the back there's like some pads, which are just delaying quite a lot, and I use this Korg delay on a preset called Looper 1 and 2, which is amazing for like building textures and really ambient little intros and transitions and stuff, and things for the back of the, you know, mix when you just want to fill up that space a bit in an interesting way. So if I just mute this, you can hear it kind of working. That's got a lot, you know, and there's another mode which is a bit slower. So, but yeah, I used this one quite a lot on like a lot of the songs for their textures and stuff. So this one's already bounced, I think, with this delay. And that's going on, and then there's another one which kind of comes, which rambles on top, like. Put in a Dilla siren, just because why the fuck not? And it fits the mood before the sax comes in. So right now I'm going to move into the mix session because there's a few things that are not in this session that are in the final mix. So let's go to that. So the mix session is pretty much similar to what we just saw. It's just a bit neater. I usually start to like comp things together just to get the track numbers down. I don't like looking at too much stuff on the screen. It just needs to be quite organized and neat. It's a bit OCD, to be honest, but I like it like that. So the drums, for example, they're all now comped together from those 3 kits. And in fact, in this session, I don't have the track here, but I added another loop to even further glue the groove together, because by the time it came to mix it, I just felt like it needed another push. So there's a sample here. And this sample is really cool because it's flanging and like phasing in the back, like doing this tape flange. So just like wishing and washing in the center, and I really like that kind of glue that it brought to the rhythm section. No, not you, quack. So yeah, the saxophone actually had a bunch more stuff going on here, which I actually balanced to save some power on the computer and the DSP of the Apollo. I record everything on an Apollo 8P from Universal Audio, and so the plugins I used on the sax, for example, like there was like a bit of Fairchild and Pultex working on the sax. The Fairchild's fantastic for like, you know, very acoustic instruments, and especially on a sax. And then like the Pultec also was EQing it, but I don't have the settings on here. But that would have been the chain, I think. It's pretty old school for this thing. But yeah, there's like a room reverb on the sax. Just, I think the basic default on this. And I never use the Space Designer, like, because I've got a bunch of nicer reverbs, but, you know, sometimes the kind of shit default is the solution. And then there's like a bit of just default delay of this FabFilter Timeless. And in fact, I think there was a bit more reverb in the final mix, but let's try this. Actually, no. But yeah. Anyway, let's go to the final chorus. Okay. So now let's take a look at the vocals. The vocals begin with the 2 pitched up vocals, which I used. So it sounds like this. A chance to be, no chance to see. So these vocals are pitched up with the Waves pitch shifter, which I use if I need to do something like... it's quite clean if you go up to like 3 semitones or down 3, but the further you go, it starts to get like all glitchy and stuff. But you can get away with quite a lot, especially with like drums and, you know, some keyboards if you needed to pitch. I've pitched a whole song down before like 3 semitones using this plugin because it's pretty clean. Anyway, so a chance to be, no chance to see. And another trick, well, another thing I like to use, and which stays from the demo vocal, is a chain I've used for so long and I really like, is using the compressor in the pedal board here, because it's such a harsh, ridiculous like kind of guitar compressor, but on vocals it just gives it this kind of sheen that I put in quite early on in the demo just to make the demo vocal sound like it's something, you know, more completed than before starting to work on it more. So, and then usually those plugins just stay on and I just get used to them. So it's something like this, you know. A chance to be, a chance to be, no chance to see. You know, sometimes that just works. Anyway, There's another low vocal. So the low vocal is just supporting these two other vocals.
No chance to see.
There's a bit of...
Keeps watching the clock till 3:15. Just set him free.
BVs. When it came to the main vocal, I have... so...
Open your eyes, see your life unfolding now.
So that's the main vocal. I probably have a bit... I probably did a bounce already of like some fair EQing and like cleaning up of the vocal. But the chain is usually a 1176 Fairchild or this new one that they've released, the 176, 175. Basically one fast compressor with the fast attack, fast release, and one slower one picking it up, and that I really like. And a bit of Pultec at the end.
Open your eyes, see your life unfold.
And then for any other like surgical stuff that I would always just recommend, the Q3 by FabFilter is the best EQ ever. It just does everything you need. So if you have like a random frequency which you just don't like, you'll just pick it up and you can draw it almost. It's crazy advanced. Moving on, the first quad harmony, which means 4 vocals that I've comped together.
Open your eyes, see your life unfolding now. Open your eyes, see the light come shining forth. Open your eyes, look around. Open your eyes, see the light.
And that's my sister Zadie, who I recorded towards the end. Got her singing the main melody with me. So,
open your eyes,
and together we sound like this.
Unfolding now. Open your eyes, see the light come shining forth. Open your eyes, look around.
When it came to master the song, actually, we were working from the actual stem session, so there was a lot of other changes that happened in the mastering process, so that are not represented here in the mix. So it's not the final thing, and I doubt that I actually used like this little stuff. There's sometimes way more going on, especially on the vocal. But in fact, as I said, like when I've comped these are probably already processed, and I don't think this pedal board was on the final thing. And then, yeah, the vocals are the same structure as the set.
It's simple to find your invisible friend.
Wow, cheeky 12 pitch down vocal, which is pretty weird. I would never think that I'd do that, but I did, and it's here.
It's simple to find your invisible.
I just think it just gave a bit of body to the kind of choir that it needed to be. And it's so subtle you don't even hear it, but on its own it's pretty nasty.
Your invisible friend, no pressure, no chance.
Anyway, I'll pretend I didn't show you that. So moving to the end, like. Some ad-libs from my sister, rocking it, and I put her through some extra delay on here, and for some reason I let that click slip, which is shocking. I would never ever let that slip, but I did in this session. Forgive me. So all the tracks go into seven stems, which are drums, percussion, bass, guitar, keys, synth, vocal, and extra bass. Is that 7? No, it's 8. But nowadays, I just, I mean, the drums and percussion will be one thing, keys and synth would be one thing. When I was doing this, I just kind of felt like I needed to separate it, but not anymore. But in this case, the percussion's justified because there's a lot of it going on, so it's nice to have it separated with the drums. So yeah, and then the extra is just the sax, I think. Yeah, sax. But yeah, anything else you want to put in, you know, it would just go in extra. But yeah, that just gives the whole control over everything. And then like I do, you know, final kind of processing on each of these stems, which would be either like, you know, whatever I need to EQ or compress and you know, sort out as a whole. I also do like a lot of just kind of basic low pass filtering. No, high pass filtering. Sorry. So yeah, like everything that isn't bass, like above 100 is kind of cut automatically, because yeah, don't need it. And all of that then sums into the music master, which is the master bus. And I've got a separate one for the vocal, because I bounce vocals and instrumental separately for mastering, so that we have like full control over that. But the chain is as follows, which would be curve bender, plugin, not the real thing, because I would love to have the real thing, although it's almost $6,000. But it's the most amazing EQ because you can just for a mix bus, it's I'm boosting at 20 and 20k and 70 hertz, and you can just put it all the way to the top, which is like, I think, so it's 5 decibels, and it still sounds great. It's not like it's super chunky. Sometimes I add a bit of 8k if I'm missing a bit of presence, but that's about it. And then, you know, sometimes you can take off like the mud. But yeah, smiley face, EQ. That also then goes into a compressor, which would be like the SSL, which I really like. The SSL is just a classic compressor, which sounds like a finished record when you put it on. Like this is pretty. And it's great, you have the sidechain filter for the low end and the mix control. If it's not the SSL, it's like a Acoustica L-Ray, which is another great compressor for your mix. That one I used actually a lot on the EPs, and that one's based off like an old RCA compressor. And there's sometimes a bit more going on in the master chain. Like sometimes there's a stereo widener. There's a specific one I use which I like because it does the job really well. Stereo wideners can get really weird and they can fuck up your mix a lot. But the one I use from I think it's TK Multimedia or whatever. I use it just on the mid range and the high end, just to kind of widen it. Sometimes just for sections and stuff, but not really for low end. Just keep it like centered in the low. And then for the vocal, it's also the same chain. Sometimes the compressor is like the final output because the vocal and the instrumental are gluing into the compressor. But just with the EQ, I don't want to add this low end on the vocal, so I just like to have it separated. I mean, that's it. And then sometimes you go into the tape machine, which is cool, the Ampex 102. There's a bunch of settings here which can fit various songs and stuff. You just have to try them all out. Sometimes, you know, you just like it adds too much hiss and you take it off and like, but it's pretty cool. I've not used it on everything. Sometimes it kills the transients of like the track of the drums, but sometimes it just, you know, fixes everything that's wrong. Yeah. that's pretty much it. That's Invisible Friends. Let me know what you think. I hope you enjoyed that. And let me know if you want to have a breakdown of another song. I'd be more than happy to guide you through it and show you what's going on. Thanks for tuning in. Peace.